Senator Hume.
Thank you, Madam Deputy President. Look, I think it's quite encouraging that we're having this conversation in the Senate chamber in particular today, because obviously the Senate is where states are best represented. And I note that Senator Polly is in here batting for Tasmania, and that's exactly what she should be doing, as I should be in here batting for Victoria, because that's what I'm here to do. So it's understandable that this is the appropriate forum to be having this discussion. That said, however, I do feel that the entire discussion about the Productivity Commission's draft report is only politically motivated, and I do note that it is, of course, Tasmania and South Australia, where we're having state elections that they are the noisy states in this particular debate. I don't think it would come as any surprise to know that fiscal equalisation, as you well know, has been a feature of the Commonwealth state-government relations since the early years of federation. This is nothing new, and under Australia's current approach, the Commonwealth Grants Commission recommends a GST distribution to the states that provides each state with the capacity to provide its citizens with a comparable level of government services. That's what it's here to do. And that current system, the current system we have now, is agreed by all states prior to the introduction to the GST in the year 2000. Now, in recent years, clearly views have been put to the government that the current approach to horizontal fiscal equalisation creates potentially disincentives for reform, including reforms that enhance revenue-raising capabilities or potentially drive efficiencies in spending, and they argue that any gains from reform are effectively redistributed to the other states. And so in commissioning this inquiry by the Productivity Commission, the government has sought an examination of the issues that underlie those particular claims. It's absolutely vital for Australia's future prosperity that the system that underpins the Commonwealth state financial relations supports productivity, efficiency and economic growth across the entire country, not just in one or two specific states. Ultimately, it is all Australians that will benefit when the states actively pursue reforms and that seek to improve productivity, efficiency and economic growth within their own jurisdictions. It is absolutely critical that all Australians are entirely confident that our GST sharing arrangements are working, and the recent circumstances that have resulted in one particular state having an extremely low relativity and therefore a low share of the GST revenue has undermined our faith in that GST system amongst some Australians, although interestingly not those that we heard from today. And that is why in April last year the Turnbull government commissioned the Productivity Commission to review Australia's system of horizontal fiscal equalisation. And that particular inquiry was undertaken to find the impact on the national economy of Australia's system of horizontal fiscal equalisation, which underpins the distribution of GST. Now, the report has come back. It is a draft report only. It is a draft report only. I think that's been said at least 24 times in the chamber in the last couple of days. The final report is due to be handed down to the government early this year, where the Productivity Commission will, and the Productivity Commission is currently extensively consulting on that particular report. The government is not ruling anything in and it's not ruling anything out, and it would be foolish to do so, and the opposition knows exactly that. It would be foolish to do so. This is the normal process with any Productivity Commission report. We let the Commission complete its processes, and then we will discuss and consult with the relevant states, the relevant particular state and territory governments, engage with the Productivity Commission and let everybody have their say on the contents of that report. Now, the report that the findings in that report and the recommendations have found that the current system of GST distribution has served us very well indeed during periods when state situations are relatively similar, but has not been able to deal with the extremes of the outlier circumstances in one particular state, and in particular those have occurred recently in WA. We are the only federation in the world that takes equalisation this far and stretches the rubber band to these kinds kinds of extremes. So the Productivity Commission has recommended revising the objective of the horizontal fiscal equalisation program from same standard to a reasonable standard. Now, these recommendations are going to be considered before the government makes any recommendations whatsoever. The scare campaign that is coming from the other side of the chamber is entirely due to the upcoming state elections in both Tasmania and South Australia. I thank those opposite for their advocacy for their states, but I find it disingenuous.
Thank you, Senator Hume.